Hi everyone! If you can hear me alright, just shout out in the chat. And welcome to the Modest3D Xplorer webinar. And I'm Samantha Butler. I'm the Head of Quality Assurance and Product Owner at Modest3, and I'll be giving you a bit of a walkthrough of the software's capabilities. I'm going to show you our virtual trade show room and our virtual presentation room, and then we'll dive into some of the overview of lesson creation itself and how you can create something like this in our Modest3D Xplorer software. So without further ado, let's kick this off. And so as you can see the screen in front of me, this is our player, and this is where everyone would download lessons that you create and play them together, and you can do this in single player or multiplayer sessions. So I'll try and load in 2 people so you can see some multiplayer action here. And we'll load in XR trade show, and let's start off in our trade show room. So there you can see that I have multiple lessons within this project, and the first one I want everyone to load into when they join me is the trade show room. And I'm just going to invite one extra user here, demo 1, and I'll launch right in there. And so the other user is now getting an invite, which they can then join me. So I'm just going to load them in on another computer. And here we've loaded into the trade show, and behind me here we'll see there's demo 1, the multiplayer user that I invited. And so I'll just switch to the other computer and have them roam around a little bit for you guys. So he's going to go over to one of the booths, and I'll switch back. Alright, so this is the virtual trade show room, and the idea behind a room like this is for you to invite many people, and we have different booths from various companies, which will be manned by the avatars of people from those companies, which everyone could go to, speak, have conversations with, learn about what they have to offer. And for example, well, you can see here I have one of the avatars, so you'd have various avatars like this roaming around in various colors, and in VR you would actually have a person avatar with some hands. And say we were interested in learning more about Modest3, so we come over to the Modest3 booth, and we would say have a conversation with someone from Modest3, and they'd say, well, why don't you have a look at our virtual presentation we have. So we all will load in, we can change the lesson, we'll all load into our auditorium. You could also load them into, say, your own private trade show room as well that just has displays specific to you. So for Modest3, we set up this virtual presentation room. So here you can see we've got like our PowerPoint presentation set up in this virtual space. So here all of your players would load in and have a watch. And so here we can go over some of the Explorer interface. As the controller of this lesson, I have access to all the different states of this lesson, which appear here on the left. And so if I were to click one of these states, it would change the state of the room to match that I had set up within the editing process, which I'll show you a bit later. So starting from the beginning, you can also just cycle through your states just by pressing the right and left arrow, and you can see it's just going to cycle through our slide deck that we set up, and I'll show you how to do that. And again, you can play some videos, And here is an example of how you could turn the space into a virtual training scenario here, where we can help people familiarize themselves with a piece of equipment. So here we have an engine, the CFM engine, and I have a intro video going on in the background where it's showing some parts. As a presenter, you could isolate the parts on this 3D model example we have down below, and users in the scene can freely move around and inspect it as close as they like. And as the presenter, you have the ability to either have set up some defaults ahead of time to show what you like, or on the fly use these tools on the right hand side to help you explain your piece of equipment better. And some of the tools we'll go through here, like the grab, you can actually just grab and move parts around to isolate them out here, or just so you can see better what's underneath them. So you can grab and move things. You can use draw tools, so you can point things out. You have free draw, so you can actually like circle some stuff or make some measurements, visual measurements. And you can pick different colors and line widths and things like that as well to help you out with your explanations. We have in multiplayer two tools called one beacon and one group teleport. Beacon would let you place a beacon on the ground, and you can decide to have it a highlight beacon or just a regular flag that would basically indicate there's an area of interest here that you suggest people congregate on to get the best view of what you're trying to explain. So if we were trying to explain the back bit of this engine, we would point it out using a beacon and say, at your leisure you can come to this area and learn more about this. This is what I'm talking about. This is where the best view is. Or if you want to be more commanding about it, we can use one of these group teleport tools. Let's remove the beacon for now. And we could pick various formations for your viewers to congregate in, and we can decide exactly their spacing and how far away from the beacon point we want it by just dragging it. And here I'll let it go, and I only have one user, so they're just going to start at the edge of that arc. But if you had about like 5 or 10 users, they would start to fan out in that curve that you saw, and with the circle they would completely circle the object if I were to put it down like this. And in that way you can ensure that everybody is together and focused on the same thing. Observers and presenters have a laser pointer tool. This is where you can pinpoint a specific object to highlight to indicate that you have a question about that object, which the presenter or teacher can then can absolve or help them out with. We have also the various effect tools that are available in the editor here for you to play with, like highlight. You can highlight specific points. You can have more than one thing highlighted. You can x-ray parts. Let me just reset my view so it's all back together again. And I can just x-ray them. If I don't want to move them, I can keep them in the original position, just x-ray them so we can see underneath them. If you don't want them in the view, you can even make them disappear altogether with the visibility tool. And this way we can get rid of the shell and we can see the engine parts right that are underneath that maybe are more relevant to the part of the lesson we're teaching. The color tool we often like to use to isolate components. So here I've actually preset one in the editor component where you isolate systems of a model in order to get a better visual of what is actually kind of interconnected and working together. the different parts. So here we have the outer fuel connectors and exhaust nozzle pipe here. And these are examples of labels. Labels on here. And we also have the ability to expand objects. So here I've preset it to expand a certain amount, but within the player itself, we can decide what degree you want. If we want to expand it a little bit more, we can just pull it out a little bit more. We can decide what axes it is expanding on. So if we only want it on the x-axis, then we can do that. And then it's only going to be expanding in that one direction. Then we can get a better look at these parts. If my model had any animations on it done up in the model embedded, then I could play them here. You can take screenshots during your lesson using the screenshot view, and you always have access to your parts list. So this is the scene hierarchy of the model. So here, if I expand out the CFM engine, I'm going to be able to see all the parts of the CFM, and I can break them down even farther and say, oh, combustion fuel pipes, where are those? So I'll double click that, and it'll bring me right to them. Oh, this component is combustion fuel pipes. So that's something I've just learned just from looking at the parts list and exploring at my leisure. The different, as I showed you, we are able to hop between lessons, between different rooms. We have the voice options. So here in the top right, you can see this is a push to talk button. So if demo 1 was remote and we wanted to talk to each other, we could just hold this down and speak to each other, or you can change it to always on and have the voice always on there. But you have the capability to have voice chat within this room. And here is a hit spot. So when I click that button, it basically changes the state to just isolate that component it was advertising, and that's something that I'll show in the lesson creation, which we'll get to very shortly. The last lesson I have in here is the shipyard one. So this is an example of how you can load in. This is a very simple lesson. You just load in a 360 video. And it just allows everybody in 3D to view this 360 video of the shipyard and how that works. And this is a very simple thing to do in Xplorer. And there, just by looking all around, you have the 360 view of the shipyard. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll have an answer. Any questions so far?
We had one. We were asked, is there a library of assets available for a trade show, for example, or will all assets need to be custom imported? Responded that we can provide a library of assets related to the trade show itself, and we can integrate a model, like for example that you get from CG Trader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perfect. Good question. Any others? Feel free to ask. And right now, I think we'll get into the editing portion. So we will pull up the editor. Okay. I'll change my view over for you guys. There we go. This is now we're inside of the Xplorer editor itself. So this is how we created this, and I'm just in the auditorium lesson. So I'll just show you quickly how you can go about making a lesson like this. Basically, you pull in your model, and if I just create a new state, this is, for example, how your model would come in. So this is the model that was created for us, and we've dragged and dropped it into the scene, and this is what our generic auditorium model looks like. And for this one we just have the engine model, but this model, 3D model, could be whatever is relevant to you. In our case, we're just going to use this engine. So this is the original state. So how do we go from this state to this beginning state? I'll show you exactly how. So here in scene hierarchy, you just want to select all the parts that we want to hide. So obviously in the first state, we don't have this engine because we're just giving our intro presentation. We don't need it, so we're gonna hide it. So I'll find the model. So here, we can see the CFM is broken out into its engine and its stand, and we want them both hidden, so I'll hold Alt, I'll click those, and I'll select all of them. And then I just want to hide it, so you can click these icons next to it, or you can click this icon up at the ribbon, or keyboard shortcut B. There's lots of different ways to do it in the editor, whatever suits your workflow best. So here I have hidden the model because it's not relevant to what we want our first state to represent. We want the first state to represent the first slide in our 3D presentation. So I'm going to click this wall and get rid of its default image by replacing it with the one that I want. So in our assets, so I'll just click the object that I want to edit, and here in the properties we can see all the different things that we can edit about it. And so I'll just show you one here, which is the video and image one, and that's the one that we're going to need to update in order to start a 3D presentation. So here I have a folder full of presentation images, which I've imported into my project just through file import. I already have these pre-loaded in here, so I'm just going to drag one of my images and drop it into the properties. So this is a big part of how Xplorer works. It's a drag and drop asset system. So again, I can just click the object I want to change, and I can drag and drop the image into its image video appearance property. And I can make these the same, or I can make them different. It depends on how you want your presentation to go. Just simply drag and drop the asset you want from the side into the property. So again, I'll just update the last one, drag and drop. And there we go, we have that first state completely set up the way we want. As a comparison, here's the first one, and here's our second one, and that was pretty quick. And so now, say we want to update to the second one, and this is just updating these slides for our second slide deck, and that's just going to be as simple as duplicating our first slide and say presentation slide 2, because this is gonna represent the second presentation slide that we have. So by duplicating it, we still have the first ones up, so you just need to click them and drag and drop a different image asset into all the spots. And this is the process you would do to do the 3D presentation if all you're doing is just updating your slide deck, and that's all there is to that. You can also, same as you just dragged an image, I could have dragged a video. So here I just drag and drop a video, and it plays the video, so it works much the same way. Now say we want to do something like the expand one, maybe. See if I'm expanded, so we want something like this. So what we'll do is I'll just create a brand new state to show you how that one works. So in order to have your model expanded by default, all you need to do is go to mode and change it to expand mode, and then we can give it an expand root. that's something you'll just drag from the hierarchy. If we want to just expand the engine, or if we want the stand to also expand, that depends on what parent you use. Here I'll just drag and drop the engine by itself, so everything underneath this root, so if I expanded this out, everything under here, this is what's going to expand. If I wanted just to expand this one section, then that's what I would use. And you could hide the other parts around it to get the look that you want. And then I would just drag out using this how to expand. But you also might want to change what algorithm it's using to expand your model to get the best look. As you can see, this pivot to parent pivot, this is all dependent on how the model is set up and where the pivot and center of the model are. You can just play with it and get one that you like. And again, you can decide if it's going to expand on all axes or just the X. And you can leave it there. And wherever you leave it, this is going to be the default for when you save your lesson and you upload it online for people to play. So, and there we have that state set up. Another thing to note, in one of the slides here we saw a hit point action. So this is a button that we use that when clicked, it basically changed the state of the model to be this one, with just that single component, with all the other components hidden and only that component visible and expanded. And the way you do that is just by adding an interaction to this button. And that's just done by clicking it and going to action. And here we have the set state action where we've just dragged one of these states into the property. Now, how did I get this button? First, it's in home, we have hit point is what it's called. And when we put it in the scene, it first just looks like this. That's just the default hit point. But hit points, as you can see in the properties here, has a bunch of different methods for customizing them, including dragging and dropping a background. And I think we have a couple here, bunch of background stuff. But basically you would just drag and drop an image. See if we have a good one. Button background here. So like I mentioned, just dragging this button background into your background image video is going to update the background of that. And then you can change its width and its size through all these other properties, and you can play with that as you like. Add text, change the text color, hide the text, hide the background, anything to get it to look the way you want. But the interactivity just comes from this one property, action, where you change the type, and for what that button was, it was set state. But if we wanted to link to the component one, we can give it a text here, component, and maybe reduce the font size a little bit. And then we can link it. So I have the action set state. I'm going to link it to our component one. So I'm just going to drag and drop the component state, and there we would have set up an interaction. And so here, if I press play, the play preview is going to show us a preview of what it will look like when people download our lesson in the finished product. So here I'll go to the component slide. Not component, I think I was in this one here. This is the newly added hit point. When I click it, it changes the state, and that's the core of Xplorer, is creating different states of your model to change the way it looks and how it's reacting, and then you just create interaction points that link those states together. And that way you get you can build up a linear training scenario, or a very simple branching one where you are linking a few slides together. Because now I have both of these buttons, and each button links off to a different slide. And then when I get to that slide, say this one links off to component, and if I wanted to add interactions on these two, then those two could link off to, again, another 2 slides. And that's interactions. You can also add your images right to the state itself. So as an example, so here I have an image attached already, which is a business card one, but I can add as many as I want, and I could actually just put my whole presentation in here like that. And just as an example, I'll do 2, and I'll say slide 1 and slide 2, because those are the images for my slide 1 and slide 2. And then if I play, they'll show up just as a state detail. So here under state details, I can see my 3 images. One that was already set up is a business card image, and the other 2 are my presentation slides. So I can change between them, and these are resizable windows, which would be attached to your learners' screens. So it wouldn't be in the 3D space, this one would be on your 2D. And therefore, it could be there the entire time you're going through the lesson. And then you wouldn't need to have them on the wall here if that was the way you're creating a lesson. It's just another way to do it. And you can also add supplementary learning material this way so that people can take a look at it. Any questions? Any more questions?
Actually, the other question is, what you're demonstrating here, Samantha, is this just an internal resource for Modest3D, or is this available for everybody, public use?
Oh yes, our Xplorer product is for public use. For sure, you can download the software from app.modest3d.com, which I'm sure that Hamza has already linked in the description. Yes, the editing process is actually free.
And Samantha, can you please briefly show how you can launch a lesson for editing through Portal?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, I'll just set up that page so you guys can see it.
Oh, actually, Lori's saying she's already in. She already disassembled her C7.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. This is the portal, and basically when you have your project, you just click it and hit edit, or you can launch a new one just by clicking this X. And that'll launch you right into a brand new lesson. And here is where you want to drag and drop all of your assets before you go in, or you can import them within Xplorer, but it's always, I find, easiest just to drag and drop them before you go in, and all of these assets will then be shared amongst all the lessons that you create within this one project. And again, you can just say create new project, and that will get you started on the project. That's all there is to that one. Yeah. Back in the editor, that's really mostly what there is to it. It's, again, just creating a bunch of states where you change the way your model looks, and then linking them together with interaction points. One thing I might want to reiterate is that I showed you how to do actions on a hit point. You can also do the same thing just on object parts themselves. So they have the same action property where you can choose an action and set that up, just where if the user were to click on that object, then that interaction is the one that would take place. So, and I showed you the set state one, but you could also set up it to play a video or an image, or play audio or an embedded animation, or even change lessons completely within as an interaction. all you have to do is just pick which one, video for example, and just drag and drop the asset. So again, in your assets tab, just find your video and drag and drop it into the assets tab. And then here I might want to give it a highlight to indicate it's interactable, or maybe even give it a label. If I click it, I can just click label and drag that one up, scale it out a little bit, and just say click here for video. And then when I play, what am I on? CFM engine intro. If I click that part, it's going to play that video for me. Click here and our video plays up here. And that can be done with images, and when you click it you can play some audio, you can change lessons. All of the actions really work very similarly. Again, just click on the part that you want to add the action to, go down to the action property, and just select the type of action you want and drag and drop the proper asset that it asks for. And then you'll be well on your way to start creating your lessons in Modest3D Xplorer.
Awesome, Samantha. Can we get another look at the trade show room?
Yep. We'll go back to the trade show room. Alright, so here we're in the ship, so yeah, I'll just go lessons and we'll go back to the trade show room. And here's a look at the trade show room. So again, it can be done up with really booths of any kind, of any company, and here's just done up a few example booths. Here's kind of style of booth, and this is where you can kind of interact in your multiplayer session. And again, using that change lesson action, we can set up parts of this to link you to specific lessons. So you could set some kind of a button or pamphlet on your counter to be interactable. When you press it, it'll link you off to, say, that auditorium lesson that we were just in. And there's my multiplayer demo user. Yeah.
Samantha, can you please go over quickly some of the tools that you can use as a presenter to communicate, manage a class, or manage an audience?
Yep, I'll take us back to the auditorium for that one. But yeah, as a presenter you have that list of tools on the right hand side. A bunch of effect tools that you can use on the fly, some free draw tools, draw shape tools so that you can manipulate your object in real time. So here I'll bring up my engine, for example, and again here in the tools I've got my grab tool. This is very useful for, say, somebody laser points this and it's like, what is this part, and what is underneath of it? So as a presenter, I will address that and say, oh yes, this part is, well, I don't really know much about engines, but this is part X, and underneath is YZ, and actually if we move this part, you can see even more detail on this part and this part, and you can point out something, or you could highlight a specific point you're talking about. You're saying this section here, or that's the X-ray tool, I can highlight that tool. Let me undo my X-ray. You can always undo the effects that you put on. So here I'm gonna maybe highlight maybe this bit, and I'll be like, and this is what the other users are going to see, is the big highlight, and you can say this particular part is this, and it does such and such. Actually, I should move my little picture here so you can get a better look at it. There. Yeah, and point that out, and then you can systematically go deeper into your engine by removing parts, or if you don't want to remove them completely, we can just X-ray, look deeper. And and again, you have your voice control up here, so you can be speaking as a presenter. You may want to always be speaking. Here we can turn our always on function on, and then you're always active and actively speaking without needing to press that. Again, these beacon tools are very useful with a large class. You can either indicate a point of interest leisurely like this, or more authoritatively, you can command them to be in this specific area. We will be adding more tools in the future for kind of a share my view camera, where you can specifically focus them on your view at that specific time. And lock view, which will, once force teleported, will lock them there until given freedom. There will be tools like that to help manage a very large class. Also, things like making avatars disappear within certain distances from each other so it doesn't get too crowded. These things will all help that. Laser pointer is kind of like a opportunity for students to point out parts they're unsure about, that they don't know the names of. They can point them out, and you can address their concerns about that. Again, visibility tools and anything accessible there, and the editing side, we can do them on the fly here in the player with the tools that a presenter has available. Anything else?
Nothing more as of now. So just give it a couple minutes and see if someone else would like anything else.
Again, the expand option here is very useful as well. Taking these apart, opening it up so that you can explain things in more detail. If you have any other questions, just let us know down in the chat, and anything you would like to see or know more about. Good? Perfect. That's a brief overview of the Explorer, Modest3D Xplorer software, and that's what I wanted to show you today. So have a great rest of your day, and it was great doing the webinar with you. Alright, bye-bye now.